Welcome to Vintage Weights PGH. My name is Rob, and I'm happy to have Zach Mullins here. Hi, Zach.
How you doing, man?
Good. So, listeners, the reason I'm happy to have him here is that Zach has been like a mentor to me in terms of grip strength. I've been firing off questions at him about everything from like how to lift a blob to like what is this implement? How do I get into competing and things like that? So, when Zach announced in conjunction with Ben Helms that the two of them were going to put on a competition, heavy hands, this coming September, I thought, oh man, I'd really like to make it to that. Like, it'd be a chance to hang out in person. It'd be good to like compete. But then I immediately was scared. I immediately thought like, oh crap. Like I'm like I would say if I'm being real cocky, I'm kind of an average grip athlete at this point. Maybe I've graduated a little bit from rookie to like average to below average. So I shot you a message and said, hey, this heavy hands thing, September 9th in Virginia, is that going to be like a bunch of monsters just like destroying it? Or could a guy like me come to it? So Zach, could you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, man. I think everybody gets a little bit freaked out, or they get a little bit of like competition anxiety sometimes. Whether that's, any sport. I mean, you name it, you know what I mean? Baseball, basketball, football, whatever, powerlifting. There's always some kind of like anxiety around competition. So I think when they hear that it's going to be like grip strength or there's going to be like maximum lifts, their mind probably goes to like world's strongest man type stuff, seeing these giants, you know what I mean? Stuff like that. But one thing that I will say about the grip community in general is everybody's super welcoming, and it's probably one of the most diverse kind of crowds you can run into, because don't get me wrong, you will have some giants that are moving, elite level world-class weights. But at the same time, you might have teenagers there. There's tons of female athletes that train and lift, and there's people that, they don't even know what the competition is. They just happen to have a buddy or somebody be there. And, they're signing up for it and kind of just doing it for fun. So it's like they're learning on the, like on the job, so to speak.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Well, that's why, I thought it'd be cool to have you on, because listeners, if you've never done a grip competition, it's not too late. By the time this drops, it'll be about the beginning of August, which gives you a full month to kind of prepare yourself and get yourself to Charlottesville, right? Charlottesville, Virginia.
Going to be Charlottesville, Virginia, September 9th.
Mm-hmm.
And that is at Iron Will Gym.
And what is the humongous cost?
Oh, for the entry fee. Yeah, no. And that's the thing too. Like a lot of the grip competitions are like real affordable. So for
that's why I joke.
this will be through this will be sanctioned through Grip Sport International, or GSI as people will refer to it sometimes. So this is sanctioned through that. And to sanction a competition, it does not cost much either. But for our entry, we're only charging $20.
$20. That's it.
And I know Ben, who's like co-hosting it with me, has a link up on Iron Podium. If anybody's familiar with Iron Podium, a lot of people use that for like strongman registration and different competitions. You can register online through that link, or if you just want to show up at the door with $20 in hand, Venmo, PayPal, whatever people are doing these days, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't matter. There's lots of ways.
Figure it out.
Yeah, for sure. But $20.
And on Iron Podium, I'd never done an event on there before, registering for heavy hands, and it was easy enough. I actually did it on my phone. Like I registered on Iron Podium and was able to register for heavy hands, like while I was sitting in the back of my van, like at a baseball tournament.
It pretty much
a couple weekends ago. It was super easy. So with my kids,
hosting it, but at the same time, it's like I'm still registering because I'm competing as well. So it took me like 30 seconds.
No big deal.
Ben set it up, and it's easy to register. So
now, as far as the competition's concerned, you make a good point about Grip Sport International, that you don't have to like register with it, because, for example, I'm in between stage 1 and stage 2 of Arm Lifting USA Super Series, where I had to like pay a certain amount. I think it was $30 or something to join Arm Lifting USA before I went to stage 1. But there's none of that with Grip Sport. Grip Sport's the other organization that Jed Johnson is involved with, and Jed was on Home Gym History podcast and spoke to Grip Sport International. So if you're listening to this and you're thinking, maybe I'll dabble in it, just know that you really don't need to join anything. You just you can show up, you can register ahead of time if you like, and it's $20. Now, as far as what it is and how you could possibly train for it, there are a couple different implements, a couple different events, if you will. So, Zach, why don't we go through the events here
Yeah, for sure.
and let the listeners know what's involved?
Okay, so it's going to be 4 events, and the format is going to be rising bar, last man standing. So basically what that means is rising bar just means that whatever implement we're lifting on, we're going to start adding weight to it. And basically, because there's unlimited attempts, last man standing, you don't have to select attempts like your 3 attempts for a powerlifting meet per se. You have unlimited attempts, but if you miss an attempt, you're out. So we start low with whatever everybody's openers are, where everybody wants to open up at. And then basically once that weight goes up, we're not dropping it. We're not pulling any plates back off.
Yeah.
So, you know, if you sit out for 3 or 4 attempts and people are adding weight, and you go up and miss, you can't be like, hey, can we pull like 20 pounds off and let me try? No, like it's once we add it, it keeps going up. So that's the rising bar aspect.
Gotcha.
And the unlimited attempts or the last man standing is just you keep going. You can take, I mean, if you take 10 pulls and you hit all 10 pulls, cool. You're getting the highest lift, the max lift out of that. But the second you miss, you're out. And for those 4 events, if you'd like me to break those down.
Yeah. So how about just name the 4 implements and then we'll get into each one of them. So what are the 4 events?
Yeah. The 4 events that we're going to be contesting for this are the 2-inch rolling handle, one hand nightmare, which is made by Arm Assassin Strength Shop. Then it's going to be the Fat Bastard Barbell Company axle. It's Andrew's axle, named after Andrew Derniat, because I believe he lifted the most weight on it back when they contested it. I don't want to be wrong on this, but maybe like 2019 Legends or an older grip competition. But
if someone listening knows, drop a comment and let us know. You know,
but Andrew's axle, it's a 2 3/8, so it's the same diameter as like an inch dumbbell, or you know what I mean, something similar like that. Or
so it's thicker than your typical axle.
Yeah, your standard axles like Iron Mind and inches, the Rogue axle
1.9.
Yeah, 2 and 1.9. This is going to be thicker than that. So think closer to 2.5 inches for the axle. Then we have a 3-inch Saxon bar, which the Saxon bar is basically just your rectangle. It's a 3x4 rectangle. It's going to be a pinch grip, and that's made by Arm Assassin Strength Shop as well. And then the final lift of the event is the Iron Mind Little Bighorn. And that is basically just a steel cone that kind of mimics the horn of an anvil. So like a vertical lift.
Now, if you've stuck with us this far, listeners, and you have 0 grip experience, what we're going to do is break down for you. And I guess I should say, too, if you've stuck with us this far and you're interested, but you just don't have the cash flow to buy all these implements, or maybe you're missing one and you're like, oh, well, I got 3 out of 4. I got 2 out of 4. Or you have none of them and you have no grip experience. Well, that's what we're going to get into now. So let's go through each one, Zach. And you started out with the Napalm Nightmare. So Napalm Nightmare is a product from Arm Assassin Strength Shop that was developed with Jed Johnson. He spoke about it on my home gym history episode with him. This one's a little thicker. It's a 2 3/8 inch, but it's what you're contesting is a 2-inch.
And so just be a little skinnier than that.
Exactly. If you want to buy the single handle like this, you can do that, and you can buy the single. But I mean, quite honestly, when I went to buy it, I just bought the full Napalm's Nightmare, which is a rotating handle that you can switch out. Now, let's say you don't have this and your stone broke. What can you do to substitute for this? Is there a substitute for this that you can work with? Is there something you could do to work around training for this without buying it? But of course, we love Arm Assassin Strength Shop. I see their banner right behind you there. So we encourage you to go out and buy it.
If somebody was looking for an alternative to like thick bar, I mean, anything that gets your hand in that position and a similar diameter. And one that people always turn to that is very simple and I guess budget friendly is fat grips. I mean, that's kind of the go-to because you can throw that on any size dumbbell. You can hook it up to any cable attachment. You carry it in your pocket almost. You know what I mean? So a fat grip is right there. I think the blues are like 2 1/4. So that would just be over a 2-inch, what we're contesting. That's fine. The oranges are a little thicker. You're getting close to 2 7/8 with those. Fat grips would probably be my first recommendation. And whether that's on a dumbbell, if you don't have any dumbbells, but you have a barbell,
Put it right in the middle.
You can pull single hand barbell lifts.
Sure.
So that's one way. Another way that kind of referring back to a past guest you've had on is Jed Johnson.
Yeah.
When Jed was training to lift the inch dumbbell, if anybody's familiar with the Thomas inch dumbbell, I think one of the things he did was take a PVC pipe and like wrap tape around it and add thickness to it and stuff like that. So, I mean, if you just have a PVC pipe, you could strap weights to that. You know what I mean? So whether it's PVC pipe, an actual like metal pipe, something that's round, just something that is basically opening your hand up in that position that's wider than your typical barbell, and you can add weight to it, you can pretty much kind of hit the same deal.
I had a single attachment for a cable pulley that then I put a fat grip on long before I had a crusher,
like
long before I had
D-rings or whatever.
Yep. I had a D-ring. I put the fat grip on, and I used to do single hand kind of stuff with that before I bought a crusher or before I bought a Napalm Nightmare single handle. So yeah, anything you can do. In a PVC pipe too, you could get real creative, cut it down, put some rope around it, some parachute cord. I still have them actually. I have some wooden dowels that before I bought anything, I just kind of DIY'd some different handles and things out of wooden dowels, and use some parachute cord since it's rated for whatever thousands of pounds, and just figured, wow, this can hold my weight, and this will hold weight. And yeah, sure enough, I've never really had any malfunctions, just a basic square knot on them. And you could get creative in the hardware store for sure. So then next up, you mentioned, let's see, you went from the single handle to, were you talking about the Saxon? Well, we'll go there. So Saxon bar is right behind me. Yeah. So the Saxon bar, it's basically a rectangle. So if you're unaware, 3x4, and you're pinching it on the 3-inch side for this, correct?
Yes, it's going to be a 3-inch, 3-inch lift. Or
now,
3-inch, sorry, the lift is to lockout. The width of the bar is the 3-inch side by the.
So not a 3-inch lift, but
no.
a 3-inch pinch.
Lockout.
How about that? A 3-inch pinch to lockout. Yeah. So behind me is Arm Assassin Strength Shops, Saxon. I think it originally came out from Sorinex. And then Arm Assassin put out their version. At Arm Assassin, I think it's about $150 plus shipping, something like that. So if you don't want to drop that money, if you do want to drop that money, it's a very versatile tool. I use it in my gym. I like it. But if you don't want to drop that money, what's an alternative for training for the Saxon?
Yeah, I mean, you could go as simple as taking pieces of wood, 2x4s, and pinching them together, stacking weights on top of 2x4s. You could say, oh man, well, I don't want to go buy pieces of wood or something, but maybe you have like a home gym or you lift at a gym. Plate pinching is something that would sort of mimic it. And I would say plate pinching has a lot of variety, because I mean, you could take 245s and pinch them together, run a pipe through that and add weight to it. You could take 335s and pinch it two-hand. It's a two-hand lift. So regardless of your strength level, I mean, if you're a guy that's like super strong, okay, maybe pinch 345s together with the flat side out, run a pipe through it, add weight if that's too light. And then if you're, like a beginner or you're like super novice, maybe you're pinching 25s, but you have, the plates kind of vary through those different increments. So you don't have to it's all or nothing. So I think pinching plates together, like I said, that could be a combination of 2 plates face to face, or you could do 3 plates and just kind of stay around that 3-inch thickness. And pinching, but varieties of different plate pinches.
And since it's a Saxon bar and you're using both hands at once, maybe do like both hands plate pinch at the same time, just to get used to that.
And what I was referring to with the plate pinching, what I was referring to was like actually using 2 hands on.
Oh, gotcha. Sorry.
On plates.
I misunderstood.
If you have like 245s together,
perfect.
You can go 2 hands, and then like I said, run a pipe through it, add weight.
Perfect. Okay.
So
sorry, I misunderstood you. That makes total sense.
Don't get me wrong. If you go solo with one hand, it's going to be much more difficult, but 2 hands makes it a much more like viable lift for beginners and regular people.
Does.
And from pinching 10s, 25s,
like
35s.
Listeners, to give you a gauge, I just started being able to get 35s. And even that's spotty at best. It has to be like a good day for me to get a 35s with one hand. And I'm working towards 45s, obviously. So coming in as a beginner or even just as a kind of a novice, 2 hands on a 45 would be great training. What I scooched back on my bench to grab, my research archive is on the floor behind my rack, is Mastery of Hand Strength, the classic John Brookfield book.
Yeah.
I can't find it right now, but I know for a fact what you named, Zach, with the boards, you know, getting some 2x4s, putting them together. He has that in here, and
there's a lot of stuff in there. Yeah,
tons of DIY stuff in here. But what he did was he put them together to do basically a Saxon lift, because that's actually true to it. Like Arthur Saxon, the history of it, he lifted a plank.
It's like a piece of oak.
Head.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So John Brookfield screws it together. I think he has like some eye bolts or something. Maybe
some nails or something.
He attaches weights. Yeah. So I mean, again, you could go to a hardware store and get creative. You could get some pinch blocks that are much cheaper. So like Arm Assassin has pinch blocks, 3-inch pinch blocks.
Yeah.
That probably around $20. You could get 2 of those suckers and just, go to town.
Yeah. Anything that's really isolating your thumb for that lift, and then also working wrist flexion, because your wrist, you're having your wrists engaged during that lift.
Yep.
And your thumb is always going to kind of be the weakest link when you start spreading it away from your 4 fingers. That thumb's kind of going to give first, but that wrist flexion and, getting your thumb engaged. So anything that's going to tax that, whether that's, like you said, pinch block, pinching wood, pinching plates, different widths, but just getting your hand opened up and making sure that it's a pinch and you're not underneath it or anything like that. So,
and I mean, we could do a whole podcast just on how to incorporate grip into your main lifts and things like that, depending on what discipline you kind of follow with your strength pursuits. But one of the first ways I did with, lifting Saxon was just to put it in on deadlift day, because it naturally was going to be lighter. So I would use it as a warm up, or on the flip side, I'd do my heavy deadlifts and then I'd do my Saxon, because it's similar movement. Now, one last thing about that is if you go in on the napalm, you can also get the Saxon blocks that go.
Yeah, that stuff's all interchangeable, whether you have different diameters of rolling handles or you have different widths of pinch blocks. Any of those can kind of be swapped in and out relatively quickly.
Next up, Little Bighorn. So you mentioned this is basically simulating an anvil, which was an old time strongman lift, and it's from Iron Mind. And I finally picked one up this summer, and mine got nice and rusty outside in the Pittsburgh summer, which I was going for. But it's a really unique one because it has this almost like the horn of an anvil.
Yeah.
It has this kind of cone shape to it. So your hand is really challenged when you grip it, and then it attaches with an eye bolt to a loading pin. Now this was pricey. It was $120 or so.
Yeah, it's usually definitely over 100 almost anywhere.
And I mean, I think it's worth it. It is a heavy chunk of steel. When it came in the mail, I couldn't believe it. I was like, oh, okay, this is worth it. So I was glad I purchased it. I knew I'd use it long term. But let's say, again, you want to go with an alternative. What could you do to train for this one?
Yeah, that one might be a little trickier for people, but really, if you've seen like, how to put it, like 2-inch V-bars that are pretty popular. I mean, basically the same thing. Like if
like here's Genie, Grip Genie's.
Yeah, I was about to snag the same thing.
Yeah, there you go.
On the wall. But yeah, so I mean, those are fairly common attachments that you might see people have for pull-ups or, that hook up to a pulley system.
I think this was like $25.
Yeah. So anything that kind of puts your hand down in that kind of vertical support position is going to work good. But even if you have like I have like a real skinny, like knurled handle that Ben Helms actually gave to me. And I mean, you could throw a fat grip on that just to kind of mimic that fatter,
there you go.
that fatter kind of diameter with the cone shape.
Interesting.
You're not going to get maybe the taper. It's kind of harder to.
But you'll at least be training the twist of your wrist, because there is a difference. I find when I'm pulling just in this position versus having that twist,
for sure,
that vertical pull. The other thing I'd suggest is, and this is the first time, before I got any kind of V-bars, I just tried it like this. I had a loading pin, and I just grabbed the top of the loading pin.
Yeah, no, and that's an actual event too.
There it is.
Yeah, you can do that. That's an actual event too, with just a solid V-bar where there's no connection of carabiner.
Oh, okay.
That's actually a contested lift. Now it's not on a loading pin like that.
I didn't know that.
It's specifically made, but it's basically like if you picture just a giant loading pin, maybe at a 2-inch diameter,
Okay.
But like, yeah, Fat Bastard Barbell Company makes them. They used to host them in like the GSI comps. You can find old footage on that, but it's basically just a tall loading pin that's one solid piece. There's no play, no carabiner, and you're lifting that up. So,
but I mean, if you're just getting into grip, or if you don't have a V-bar and don't want to spend the money, you could train just using a loading pin and kind of getting used to it.
Loading pin. I mean, even like Spud Inc. makes like the soft loading pin straps.
Yeah.
I mean, you could wrap your hand around that and hang weight down, just to kind of get that same wrist positioning and that hand position, and then, mess with the thickness and try to make I guess some kind of taper like that cone shape. But like I said, it's, you don't necessarily have to have all the money, all the pieces to get the training done. As long as you're doing a similar type stimulus that has carryover, you're going to be, you're going to be okay, or you're going to do fine. So
like I'm training blobs right now, and for the past whatever number of months I've been working on blobs, and I've seen carryover with my pinch grip since
for sure.
training blobs.
Blobs are one of the best things for pinch, and I'll say that all the time, just because of the slopes that you're dealing with. When something's flat, obviously it's going to be it's a little easier for you to kind of hold on to it, but that like outward slope, the wider you start to get, it's almost kind of like squeezing out of your hand. You know what I mean? You don't really have the most optimal position.
Honestly,
so if you
like,
can,
it's the same idea from V-bar to Little Bighorn as like a block weight to a blob. You've got something that's squeezing out of your hand. So you've got kind of that. It's fighting against you.
No, for sure. And if you can pinch something that has slopes going outward, then you'll be able to pinch something that's flat. You know what I mean? So it'll carry over.
I see that carryover for sure. So we've got 3 out of the 4. What's left? We're missing one here.
The 2 3/8 axle, I believe.
Oh, that's right. So
we think we skipped the axle.
I don't have a 2 3/8 axle, so I've been using my Napalm Nightmare.
Okay.
And I've been so what I've been doing is I'm not going to demonstrate this right now. Maybe I'll film myself and put it on Instagram. What I've been doing is stacking up. I've got these down on the floor here, these I don't know if I can get them. There they are, the blocks for doing pulls, for doing deadlifts, and doing block pulls. I've been standing on those because my thought process was, all right, the problem with Napalm Nightmare training for the Andrews axle is that I'm basically doing a high pull with the Napalm Nightmare. It's like 1.5 feet up in the air.
You're like doing a rack pull instead of pulling from the floor.
I'm doing a rack pull. So then, which is fine if that's what you're training for. But then I thought, okay, well, I'll stand on blocks, and now I'm going to pull an extra foot. So that's what I've been doing. Instead of buying an Andrews axle, I've been doing that. And I know I just saw yesterday actually that Fat Bastard Barbell Company is kind of shut down for orders for the time being.
I didn't notice that, or I didn't know that. So that's news to me. But
they he put up a notice saying it didn't look good. It said something along the lines of like, I want to catch up with a backlog of orders, so I'm not taking any new orders as of now. But it didn't really give like a return date, and it didn't sound good. So I'm hoping that's really what it is. I'm hoping this isn't the end of Fat Bastard Barbell Company. I'm hoping that
I'd hope not, because
there's caught up and he's coming back, because I love the stuff I have from them. So
no, for sure.
But the reason I bring it up is that you literally won't be able to buy, even if you had a couple $100 and you're like, yes, I'm all in Heavy Hands 2023. Bring me the Andrews axle. I'm going to train on it for a month. Well, you only got a month to go anyway. So you could do what I just described. Any other suggestions for training it?
But like I said, kind of back to just anything that's thick bar. Just the fat grips on a regular barbell, but now you'd be doing a 2-handed deadlift instead of kind of simulating like the one rolling handle or the single hand deadlift. You're basically putting fat grips on a barbell and basically pulling that way. You could maybe wrap something around a 2-inch axle to make it thicker. You know what I mean? You could take a towel, you could take some type of like, you get guys that are like into steel bending and stuff. They got like leather or suede wraps. I mean, you could wrap a 2-inch up and probably get it if you have enough stuff. You know what I mean?
It's true.
Duct tape. I'm just saying there's ways you can add diameter to it.
The orange ones, the Fat Grip Extremes, those are thicker.
And those are actually thicker than what you'd be pulling on. So, I mean, that would, if you pull on those for a while, by the time you get down to 2 3/8, you'll be feeling,
and
it'll feel
Fat Grips are about $40 for the blue ones. something like that. There's
Yeah,
actually a
probably.
bunch on the used market for far less here in Pittsburgh. So if you happen to be in Pittsburgh, there's like this dude's selling like 15 pairs of them. So
Yeah.
if I rewind my life and I kind of think back when I got out of college, I mean, I was really paycheck to paycheck. I was pinching pennies. My home gym, quote unquote, was like two rusty, like hex iron dumbbell pairs that I had sitting in the corner of a studio apartment. And if I was listening to this, I'd be thinking, I'm not buying any of this stuff. But
Yeah.
I'd also be thinking, okay, if I can just scrape together enough to get some fat grips and I can get to Home Depot and get myself some 2x4s and cut them down, I'm in business. I can
Yeah.
do something here.
For
And
sure.
I'll set aside $20 and make it down to Virginia. So, I mean, it's a very welcoming event, heavy hands. I think it's a great place to come and learn. And that's what I'm looking to do mostly. I mean, I'm going to try to set a PR in the events as I train towards them, because I'm pretty sure I'm not going to take a top finish. So I'm trying to take a top finish for my own self. But that's my other goal, is to just watch people. It's rising bar format. So once I'm out, then literally the people that are better than me are still in. So
Yeah.
I just want to watch and learn from them and talk with them and hang out. I'm going to be coming. I had an idea. If it's cool with you, Zach, I'm going to drag a bunch of my deep dish plates and have set up kind of like a hub lifting
Okay. Yeah.
little section there if you'd like.
No,
And,
that'd be cool. Cause like I said, I've done that where I bring like inch bells or like blobs,
exactly.
just different feats of strength for people to kind of get hands on, because they are rare items.
Exactly. So if people want to try their hand at hub lifting some deep dish that they might not see every day, I'll bring a variety of different ones that have different hubs or spokes, no spokes, you name it, that you can try out. Other people will probably be doing feats of strength and things like that afterwards and hanging out. I'll probably spend a night there in Charlottesville that night. So I'll be around hanging out. And yeah, I'm looking forward to it. September 9th. It's not too late to jump in there. And like Zach said, you could just show up with a $20 bill if you wanted.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it's pretty low risk. You know what I mean? Like, you're not going to lose anything.
no.
You probably just hang out, have a good time, lift. Everybody's super helpful. That's still, like I said, one thing with grip community. I mean, you'll have guys that you've never even talked to, and they'll be trying to help you get the best lift of the day. You know what I mean? Like I've had people that I've even went like head to head with in competition, and like we both could potentially be giving each other information that's going to help the other one out lift us and win. And I'm still like, Tim Butler's a guy that's kind of like that for me.
Yeah.
If you're familiar with Tim Butler,
he's got the best blinds on earth.
Yes, absolutely.
If no one's ever followed him, his Instagram is like at Tim E. I don't even know how many.
It's hard to count the M's and the E's, and
it's hard.
It's bad,
but you'll know him when you see him, because there are blinds that look like a SWAT team tried to break into his apartment,
and I believe it was
hanging behind him.
Iguana. He claims it was an iguana.
That's even better. I didn't know that.
It got loose. So
it got loose. Always comment
scamper
it up there.
So yeah.
That's awesome.
Apparently it got loose and it tried to escape and tore up the blinds. But me and Tim do a lot of lifts.
It's a good camaraderie, you know.
Yeah, we're close in certain lifts, and depending on how the events line up, me and Tim could always kind of like maybe have an edge on the other depending on what's going on. But super laid back, and like we've always just been, helping each other with lifts or messaging, and never once been like, oh, I'm going to kind of hold this secret back for myself so I beat it. It's like, the better you make everybody else, the better you're just going to have to be. And it rises everybody's level up. So
absolutely.
Yeah. You don't want to be one of those people that like is running around acting like you got secrets, or like you're, I don't know, holding stuff back. So I'm like, you probably know. I mean, you've asked me questions about blobs, and I'll just come out here
left and right, man.
Send you like 3 or 4 videos back, you know what I mean? Just about technique, whatever I know. And hey, maybe I'm not the best in the world, but I'm just going to shoot you what I know. And maybe that helps. And then, just trying to raise everybody's level. So,
I mean, especially if you're on the Northeast, like I'm in Pittsburgh, and I'm actually, the night before, I'm taking my mother to see Eric Clapton here in Pittsburgh. So I'm like, oh man, I bought these tickets for my mom as a present, and I'm going to take her. And actually, I shouldn't say that. I think she bought them. But anyway, either way, she's going to be pissed. She's going to drop a comment on this. I bought the tickets. Anyway, so the point of the story is I'm going to be leaving like early that morning just to get down there. So you can prioritize it. You can get down there to Charlottesville, Virginia, and have a good time at Heavy Hands. It's going to be laid back. It's going to be fun. And, we're going to have a good time trying to lift some difficult implements and seeing what we can do. And when it comes to grip strength, I'll plug this for grip strength and the grip strength community as a whole. I agree with everything that Zach said. They've been nothing but welcoming to me over the past year to year and a half that I've been kind of like slowly getting more and more into it. And I've also come to the realization, studying strength history and physical culture, that in my humble opinion, there is the most connections to strength history in grip strength. There is not a strength pursuit out there that has more connections to strength history. Like almost every implement in some way, shape, or form has a connection to strength history in grip sport, which I just think is cool. So if you're into strength history, maybe you do want to pursue grip strength. And you can certainly learn a lot by heading over to Zach's account. So what's your Instagram, Zach?
It's just my name. So it would be at Zachary R. Mullins. So
perfect.
Yeah,
and I'll drop a link to it in the description. I'll drop a link to Iron Podium as well to register for Heavy Hands. And then your co-host of the event, Ben Helms, he's got a little switcheroo with the letters.
It's like Den Bugless instead of Ben Douglas. Whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. So his is Den Bugless.
Yeah.
Which again, probably easier if you just click the link, and you're going to want to follow him. He's working on cleaning and pressing the Thomas Inch dumbbell, which is pretty wild to watch.
Yeah. And he's already cleaned it like probably more than anybody in history, I would say.
I would think so.
Not that there aren't guys that could maybe clean it more like the big guys, but for like who's actually cleaned it, I would say Ben's probably cleaned it the most. And then at the lightest body weight too, you're talking about a guy that's 200.
His press attempts are getting there. Like he's getting
close.
He's getting so close. I mean, his elbow's just almost locked out. Yeah. So
I figured he'd have.
I think history's going to be made soon. So it's
cool. I think he'll clean and press it. I have no doubt. When I first saw Ben lift in person and he knew nothing about the event, I guess that would be a good story talking about like newcomers.
Yeah, please do.
Ben is as good as he is and as advanced as the lifts you're seeing him do are. Ben's only like in his first year. And I remember being at the first last year's seriously. Yeah. Last year's Super Series. Ben just showed up, he didn't know what the Raptor handle was. He didn't know what anything was. He's just pulling lifts. And I'm kind of looking at him and I'm like, man, I had the Thomas Inch dumbbell there for people to try. He lifted it the first time he touched it. Then he was like, already first time he ever touched it, he lifted it. And he was like, and this is like while we got events going on and he's doing these events, you know what I mean? The Inch is over here. He's like, just lifting it before the competition. And he's like, I think I'm going to try to clean it. So after the events got done, he went back and tried to clean it. But
day one.
He was fried from the event and everything. And it would take a while, but that was like his first intro to it. Man. And I mean, Ben was just a guy that realistically didn't have any competition and grip experience or anything like that. I mean, he lifted like big strongman weights. Don't get me wrong. He has a serious training background in lifting heavy.
Yeah.
Like benching 500-600 pounds, just stupid stuff. But as far as grip, had never competed, just wandered into it. And, with the help from a couple people kind of showing him the ropes or just kind of getting dude totally got hooked and has skyrocketed to be pretty much one of the strongest people in grip. And then definitely one of the best people for like pulling off feats and feet combinations. But that's a guy that, pretty much paid his $20, walked in off the street. And now he's like, you'd think he'd been doing grip for 20 years because he's got all the stuff, all the collection. And, he's cleaning the Inch dumbbell.
The deep end.
Yeah. And
listeners, that could be you.
Yeah. So, you might be the next Ben Helms.
You might now, or you might be the next Vintage Weights PGH. Because when I jumped into it about a year ago, I did not have the reaction that Ben had, the experience he had. But what I will say,
I didn't either.
It was like anything. It's been like anything else, any other strength pursuit, that consistency is key. And that once I prioritized grip and I started doing it more consistently, and once I started looking at it the same way you would look at anything else, deadlifting, squatting, whatever, and looking at technique and, working with things and trying to learn more and watch people that are better than you and learn from them. I mean, it's the exact same as any other pursuit. You're going to get better. So I went from like barely being able to lift a 65 blob to now I'm just floating a 90.
Okay.
And, you know, I'm getting there. You know, I have no doubt in my mind that I'm going to get the fat man sooner or later. And then the same thing with Thomas Inch. I'm training Thomas Inch, and, you know, I have no doubt in my mind that I'm going to pick up the Thomas Inch bell sooner or later, because it's just consistency. So whether you end up being the next Ben Helms and you're just picking it up day one, or whether you're next guy like me and that doesn't happen, you could just apply some consistency and get into it. And a great place to start would be Heavy Hands. So please jump in the description, check out the information for Heavy Hands. Thanks for tuning in to Vintage Weights PGH. If you like the shirt that I'm wearing, you can support the channel by buying one. And you can also just support the channel if you don't have the money to buy one or don't want to, by liking, sharing, commenting, all that happy stuff. Hey, Zach, thanks so much for coming by.
Hey, thanks for having me, man.
Absolutely.